what's the after the fact major shoreline things.
Absolutely, I do too.
Hi, Shelley. Good. We have to go ahead. Did Deb give us a thumbs up? Are we?
We need to call Jesus. 5 to 1. That's not right.
No, it isn't. I think we're in church.
See the screen up? All right, we're ready to go. 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order, and our first agenda item will be to recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. With that, we'll do a quick roll call of Planning Commission members, and we'll start with District 1, Jason Wienerman.
Here.
All right. District 2, David Benchard is not going to be with us tonight. Representing District 3, Jason Crone, that's myself, and I am here clearly. District 4, Sean Blackburn.
That's me.
All right. District 5, Mike Prell.
Here.
At large, Rich Blankish.
Here.
At large, Tara Ossendorf.
Here.
All right. And then we have our County Commissioner Representative Joe Persky here.
Here.
All right. Very good. Our first agenda item is to consider a conditional use permit request submitted by John Adolph of Kimball, Minnesota, according to section 6.9 and 9.2 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439. The request is to construct a new 50 by 160 total confinement barn with an attached 20-foot by 160-foot open lot, modify an existing open lot to 2,800 square feet, and increase to 499 animal units within 1,000 feet of city limits. The property under consideration is 41.77 acres located in the northeast quarter of Section 2, Main Prairie Township, located at 8484 135th Street in Kimball. Yeah, you can come on up. Quick roll call of members who visited the site. We'll start with District 1. Jason?
Yes.
All right. I also was able to visit the site. Sean?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And Tara?
No.
All right.
Yes.
And Joe, thank you. All right. Staff report.
Good evening. This request by John Adolph is needed due to expansion of exceeding 300 animal units within 1,000 feet of city limits. As stated, looking to construct a new total confinement barn with an attached open lot, and on the open lot that's existing will be modified in size, which is number 7 on the map, increased from 299 to 499 animal units. And just some background on the site, this feedlot has remained registered with the county and state since November 16, 1999. Met all state and county requirements since then. We did do an inspection April 7th, 2023. That one was done by Bethy Jo, and then I did do a second inspection just to familiarize myself with the site because it ended up being a conditional use permit. So there was 2 inspections, April 7th and May 1st done. The site was deemed compliant with Minnesota rule and Stearns County ordinance. And this site is, there's a map, I guess, to show this, but there is some no further encroachment to the east, to the neighbor to the east from this feedlot. And so that's just something to note. The 565 feet would be from, yeah, there should be an area in red. So this would be the original registered footprint, even though they may not be using that area or red and purple, I guess. Even though they may not be using that area anymore, they do still get to keep that area in case they would ever like to construct something. So anyway, that's the no further encroachment line, just for your reference. There's no valid complaints on file for this feedlot. We did receive a manure management plan, and I did review that, and it did meet the requirements of 7020 or Minnesota Rule 7020. There is multiple zoning districts around this property. A80, there's a municipality, which is the city of Kimball, R5, and also A40, which you can see on the map up there. The feedlot review committee did recommend approval with the conditions that staff presented. And yeah, county board would meet to review this on June 6th. Oh, and I did receive one correspondence, so that would be my last thing to add. Let me just find that. So the city of Kimball did hold a meeting May 23rd this week just to review this request, and they made, they're looking to make a request to have Stearns County make it a requirement that the Adolphs submit yearly the crop grown and the total amount of nitrogen applied, whether it's commercial or manure, to the fields lying adjacent and within the city's drinking water management supply area. So there is, and that there's a map, as I say, of the DWSMA around the city of Kimball, just for reference, and some of their fields do lie within that. And that is all I have.
All right, very good. We'll quickly go to introduction of the applicants. If you can just state your name and address for the record.
John Adolph, 8484 135th Street, Kimball.
Tammy Adolph, 8484 135th Street, Kimball.
All right, thanks. Is there anything you'd like to add to the staff report?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think they covered it all.
All right, very good. Any questions by commission members for staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I'm curious about this request from the Kimball email about the crop and nitrogen. Is this a common thing, or are other people doing this in that area?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Blackburn, there is one other conditional use permit with a very similar condition on it. The Larry Schneider LJS Farms CUP from a few years back also has acres in their manure management plan within the DWSMA, and that was one of the conditions that was placed upon request of the city. The only thing that we advised was that it be submitted to the county and not directly to the city, so we could monitor that and actually say it's meeting the condition or not. So that's what was done here.
Terry.
Was that for the city of Kimball?
Yes,
It was.
from the
Okay,
city
so
of
this is
Kimball.
not the first time they made their request.
Correct. This is the
Okay.
second time.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Good. Tara, go ahead.
I just have two questions for staff. One question, two questions for staff. One question, is there any right to privacy for any of that information? Can you just give an example?
The information is public,
Okay.
so upon request, we supply it.
Okay, perfect. And then the other question, just for my information, is with the city requesting that information, would any enforcement actions that they would want to take have to go through the county, and then how would that be handled?
Yes, the county is delegated for enforcing the Minnesota Feedlot Rules 7020. And so upon receiving the information or upon a request from Kimball, we would be reviewing it for 7020 rule compliance. So we would be finding the non-compliance issue before the city would, ideally. So,
Okay.
and we would be the ones enforcing that.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure, figure out who was in charge of that.
All right. Go ahead, Joe.
John, have you had this in the past? Have you been applying nitrogen to the fields in the past, have you not?
Yes,
Is this the first time they're requesting you to have this management plan?
yes.
And is that because of the volume?
Well, I'm guessing because we always had the 300 animal units, and now that we're going higher, we had to ask for it, and so now the city wants to ask for something.
Yeah, but it wouldn't necessarily be the number of animal units as much as the amount of nitrogen that you're applying. Wouldn't
Right.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Becky, is there any concerns about that as far as previous practice and anything else you would have to change?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, the applicants have been required to keep manure records anyway. So just because they need the CUP, it's become a public hearing and a public notice situation. So that's why I think this is being discussed. So they've always been required to keep records and be in compliance with their nitrogen rates.
Okay, and then are there any limitations that the city would have in that area as far as the application?
No, the city would not have jurisdiction for application on fields that are under county jurisdictions outside the city limits.
Okay.
So my understanding of this would be, this is a request, the resolution by the city, that we make it a condition. What they're asking for, though, is basically just to ensure that it falls within the state maximums anyway. And would you as the applicants have any concerns if we added that as a condition to the CUP?
I don't think we have any concern because it's actually everything we have to do anyway, so it's standard information. So
Yeah.
I think if they want to go to the county and ask for that information, it's public information, so.
Okay, perfect. That makes that a little easier.
So how do we deal with the language of that as we add a third condition?
Basic. Go ahead.
Would you like some assistance with that, Mr.
Oh,
Chair?
absolutely, we'll take it, yeah.
And essentially how they have it worded in their resolution here is what was stated in the prior condition for the other farm that I mentioned. So this would be appropriate, and as staff, we would not have any concerns with the language that they used in that, and the now therefore be it resolved section there. So must annually submit to the Stearns County the crop grown and the total amount of nitrogen, whether it be from commercial manure fertilizer applied to fields lying adjacent and within the city's drinking, I would say city of Kimball in your motion, drinking water supply management area.
Yeah, very good. So we could just basically add the last portion of that resolution as a condition. It basically is.
Right, Shelley's mentioning the second from the bottom now, therefore, so it's not the very last
Thank
one.
you, the second to last paragraph.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead, Tara.
One question that I would pose to the rest of the commission is why would we add a condition onto the permit that they already have to meet by rule anyway?
Mr. Chair, I can respond to that. The records are not required to be submitted to the county unless we request them, and typically that's only upon inspection or a complaint.
Okay.
So with this condition, what this does is it makes it on file at the county for request by any member of the public.
Thanks.
That was a great question, by the way.
Mr. Chair, question for staff. Do we have any idea what the nitrogen level at the Kimball currently is?
I do not currently have that information. Sorry.
All right. Any other questions for applicants or staff? All right. Then we'll go to the public hearing on this one. Is anyone here from the public on this item? If you are, just step up to the front. Not seeing a rush. Motion would be order.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion made by Rich, seconded by Jason to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, public hearing is closed. Any further discussion on this item before we go to findings of fact? All right, hearing none. Number one, is the proposal consistent with the Stearns County zoning ordinance number 439? Please specify all performance standards that apply.
Mr. Chair, it is consistent with the land use zoning ordinance 439, sections 4.8, 4.14, 6.9, and 9.2.
Very good. Thank you, Sean. Is there an environmental assessment worksheet, EAW, environmental impact statement, National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, state disposal system, or other permit required for this facility?
Mr. Chair, not at this time.
All right, thank you, Jason. Number 3, does the proposal conform to the goals and objectives of the county's comprehensive land use plan? Please specify appropriate sections. I believe it does under the agricultural goals of the county. There's a variety that apply, but we'll just go with number 1, which is to support the agriculture as a desirable land use for the long term and facilitate diversification of the county's agricultural economy. There's others that apply as well.
Mr. Chair, if I could add on number 6, which is encourage cities to collaborate with the county on the review of animal agriculture. So Kimball stepped forward on this, so congratulations to them.
Very good one. Thank you, Jason. All right, number 4, will the site configuration, number and type of animals at the site and prevailing wind conditions impact any of the following areas? Traffic, public safety, schools, parks, other impacts.
Mr. Chair, there'll be minimal impact.
All right, thank you, Sean. Number 5, has the information been provided regarding the impact of property values in the area as a result of the proposal?
Mr. Chair, no.
All right, thank you, Rich. 6, have all recommendations from the Feedlot Review Committee and feedlot staff been reviewed?
Yes.
And yes, they have been as part of our review in the packet. Any other issues pertinent to this matter? I think it's
Would you say the request from the city
yeah,
of Kimball?
Yep, thank you, Rich. Yeah, the resolution and request from the city of Kimball. And it was considered, and we will address that with one of the conditions, which the applicants agreed to. So, all right, very good. With that, motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
All right, motion by Rich.
Mr. Chair, clarification with the 2 additional conditions from the city.
Total of 3.
Total of 3 conditions with 1 from the city.
Yep.
Right, perfect. Thank you, Jason. Was that a second to that motion then?
Sure. Or Terrell second.
I'll second it.
Tara seconds, all right. Motion by Rich, second by Tara to recommend approval. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, so motion to recommend approval. We'll go to the county commissioners meeting. It's next Tuesday.
A week and a half away.
Week and a half away. All right, so about 10 days out. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with it, John.
Thanks.
All right. Agenda item number 2 is to consider a conditional use permit request submitted by Andrew Primus of Melrose, Minnesota, according to sections 6.9 and 9.2 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439. The request is to construct a new 86 by 208 foot total confinement barn with a 100-foot by 168-foot by 12-foot underbarn liquid manure storage area, modify an existing open lot to 31,224 square feet, an increase from 71.045 animal units to 292.545 animal units within shoreland. The property under consideration is 41.77 acres located in the southwest quarter of Section 8 in Grove Township, located at 36448 State Highway 4 in Melrose, Minnesota. Quick roll call of members who visited the site. Jason?
Yes.
All right. I also was able to. Sean?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mike? Yes. And Tara?
Yes.
All right. Very good. Oh, Joe. Sorry. Thank you, Joe. I didn't forget about you down there. All right. Staff report.
Okay, yeah, the request from Andrew Primus, like you said, was for a conditional use permit, and this is needed due to the expansion of animal units in shoreland, modifying an existing open lot, constructing a new confinement barn and this barn would have an underbarn manure pit, and then there is an increase in animal units up to 292.545. This site has also remained registered with the county and state. This one was since May 28th, 1999, and has met all state and county requirements. I did do a feedlot inspection March 20th, 2023, and deemed the site to be compliant with the Stearns County Ordinance and Minnesota Minnesota Rule Chapter 7020 for water quality discharge standards. There was a requirement to have a septic certification submitted, and that was just received here about a week ago, so that was compliant. And there was just a note that he had to have it submitted by June 15th, so that was received. No valid complaints on file for this site. The surrounding properties in Stearns County here are all zoned A80. Wetlands did review this site just because it looks like there could be some wet area to the south of the blue, south of number 2, and so wetlands did review that and determined that that area was incidental due to excavation that occurred back in the 1980s. So there is no setback needed to that, and it's not considered a wetland at this time. We did have engineer plans submitted and reviewed, and they did meet all the requirements for the manure pit that's being proposed. And Feedlot Review Committee did recommend approval with the 2 conditions that staff presented. Other than that, I did not have any correspondence for this site.
All right. Very good. Applicant, if you wouldn't mind just stating your name and address for the record.
Andrew Primus, 36448 State Highway 4, Melrose.
All right, Andrew. Anything you want to add to the staff report?
No.
All right. Then questions from commission members for the applicant or staff on this one.
Mr. Chair, comment and a question. So you're putting in robo-milkers?
Yes.
Very cool. And then also, so that was a comment.
Yep.
It says you're moving 170 cows over 1,000 pounds in. Are you doing a breed shift or changing the variety of cow, or where does that number change come from?
When I go to the new barn,
Yeah.
so the old barn is going to be kind of retrofitted to calf barn or dry cows,
Okay.
and then it's all going to be milk cows into the new barn.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Good. All right. Thanks, Jason. Any other questions? All right. Well, then we'll move on to public hearing on this one. If anyone is here from the public, go ahead and walk up to the front. Not seeing anyone. A motion would probably be
I
in
move
order.
we close the public hearing.
Motion by Sean, second by Rich to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Public hearing is closed. Pretty straightforward one. Any further discussion by members on this one before we go to finding of fact? Hearing none, we will go to findings of fact. Number 1 is a proposal consistent with the Stearns County zoning ordinance number 439.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. I believe it is with number 439, sections 4.8, 4.14, 6.9, and 9.2.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Number 2, is there an environmental assessment worksheet, environmental impact statement, national pollution discharge elimination system, state disposal system, or other permit required for this facility?
Mr. Chair, none are required at this time.
Rich? Number 3, does the proposal conform to the goals and objectives of the county's comprehensive land use plan? Please specify the appropriate sections.
Mr. Chair, under agricultural goals, number 1, support agriculture as a desirable land use for the long term and facilitate diversification of the county's agricultural economy. And then also under agricultural goals, retain areas with high valued agricultural land or economically viable animal agricultural operations. And then another one that I saw under agricultural goals, strengthen and retain areas with highly valued agricultural land or economically viable animal agricultural operations.
Very good. Thank you, Rich. Number 4, will the site configuration, number and type of animals at this site and prevailing wind conditions impact any of the following areas? Traffic, public safety, schools, parks, churches, other municipal residential areas?
Mr. Chair, that would be minimal.
Yeah. I agree. Thank you, Rich. Number 5, has the information been provided regarding the impact of property values in the area as a result of this proposal? And none were discussed there. Number 6, have all recommendations from the Feedlot Review Committee and Feedlot staff been reviewed? And also,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
thank you. So 7, any other issues pertinent to this matter? I'm just going to add a comment that I think it's nice to see ag continuing to evolve technology-wise. It's pretty cool operation that you have going on. So, yeah, good luck.
Comment about that same thing.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see this. Are you nervous? Fearful?
A little nervous.
You know, this is quite a change for the way you've been operating that farm and the way it's been operated over the decades. So I wouldn't mind getting an invitation when you open it up.
Okay.
I brag about our cows in Stearns County. We go to different groups. I say we got the happiest cows in the state.
All right.
All right. So with that, motion would be in order.
I'll make that motion to approve.
I'll second it.
With the 2 conditions that are listed.
With the 2
by staff,
conditions.
yes.
All right. So motion by Rich, second by Mike to recommend approval. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. So motion to recommend approval. Go to the county commissioners at their meeting in 10 days. Good luck.
Thank you.
Could be a really mean or could be the
All right. That takes us to agenda item number 3. That's to consider an interim use permit request submitted by Charles and Linda Ertl of Avon, Minnesota, according to sections 4.18, 6.62, and 9.96A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439. The request is to operate a vacation short-term rental located on lots 11 through 14 of Sunnyside Addition in section 29, lying south of Upper Spunk Lake Road and north of Upper Spunk Lake in Avon Township. The property address is 17885 Upper Spunk Lake Road in Avon, Minnesota. Real quick roll call of members who visited the site. Jason?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
I also did. Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And Tara?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. And we will move to staff report on this one. Heidi?
All right, so this is a vacation home rental. The Planning Commission and County Board approved a interim use permit back in 2012 for a 10-year permit. So that has expired, so they're back. They would like to continue with their vacation home rental. We've had no complaints on this property or this operation here. Let's see. This property is zoned residential 1. This is on Upper Spunk Lake Road. Impervious lot coverage is met, feedlot setbacks are met. Variety of uses in the area, lakeshore residential lots along with I-94, some rest stops, an apartment complex, all within a half mile of the property. They've submitted a water test for nitrates and coliform bacteria that meets the state requirements. The septic was certified in 2021. They've notified the fire department. The property has been recently surveyed. They've sent letters to property owners within 500 feet. Those are all brand new requirements that went into effect January 1st that those items previously weren't required, some of them. So they're complying with the new ordinance standards. This is a 5-bedroom home, so the previous permit was for a 12-person occupancy. They would like to continue with the 12-person occupancy, which is why they need the interim use permit, because it's more than 8. They are also working with a septic designer to increase the size of their septic system because the sizing requirements went up with the new ordinance too. So they're in the process of that. So that would be a 12-person overnight occupancy, 18-person during the day. Let's see. Quiet hours would be 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Emergency contact needs to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 2 outdoor cameras are required. The swim at your own risk sign and the personal flotation device are required. And then they'll need the lodging license from Environmental Services also. So proposed conditions, the interim use permit should be valid for 5 years from the date of issuance of the lodging license. Maximum occupancy and advertising of the vacation home shall be 12 persons. Applicant shall obtain a lodging license from Environmental Services. A septic system large enough to accommodate 12 people at 75 gallons per day per person shall be installed prior to renting the home. Flow measurement readings and monitoring of the septic shall be recorded monthly and made available upon request. The licensee shall keep a report detailing use of the home by recording the name, address, phone number, and vehicle license number of all guests using the property. Post a sign in letters no less than 4 inches in height stating swim at your own risk at the water edge or on a dock. One United States Coast Guard approved type 4 throwable personal flotation device shall be displayed, and all local zoning requirements must be complied with. That's all that I have.
All right, thanks, Heidi. Applicants, would you mind stating your name and address for the record?
Chuck Ertl, 11698 County Road 5, St. Joseph.
Linda Ertl, I'm his wife.
Same address?
Same place.
All right, thank you. And is there anything you'd like to add to the staff report?
I don't think so.
Okay, very good. Any questions by Planning Commission members for the applicants or staff? Joe, you're up first.
Mr. Chair, they said it's a 5-bedroom?
Yes.
Is that correct? With the formula, you mentioned that it would be a limitation of 8 would be the, I thought, with the formula, I thought we.
Joe, you're.
With, I'm going to go back. I'll just say there are 5 bedrooms. Is that correct? And,
Yes.
and with that, didn't we allow 2 people per bedroom on the formula when we constructed the formula?
We allow, now it's based on, we base the occupancy on the size of the septic system and what the lodging ordinance would allow per bedroom, because it depends on the size of the bedroom. Some bedrooms are small that they only allow 1.
Okay.
Some bedrooms are larger and they can have up to 3. So we took out that 2 per bedroom.
Okay.
So now we just look at a combo of what the lodging license says they can, or ordinance can have, and what the septic can handle. So.
Okay. I was thinking about the old formula.
Yep.
So the ordinance would, if they were under the old ordinance, it would be 8, and they're requesting 12.
The old ordinance, they could have 12 because it was 2 per bedroom plus 2.
But of the existing ordinance?
The existing new ordinance, the provisional use standard is 8. So if they wanted to reduce their number to 8, then we wouldn't be here. Staff could just issue that. And I believe their septic system, the way it's currently sized, would limit them to 8 with the new sizing requirements, because we increased that. We went from 50 gallons per day to 75 gallons per day per person. So that's why they need to increase the size of their septic, which is what they're wanting to do so they can keep the 12-person occupancy.
And then also, while we were out there, I noticed there was a bobcat out there. So you have some work going on out there?
Yeah, that's mine.
Oh, okay.
Because of the trees we took down, and now it's sitting right by pretty close to the shoreline. I'm picking up all that dead stuff from the grass that was in the lake.
Okay, all right. And the patio and the deck, is that relatively new, or was that there when you got the original request?
No, right behind the house there, that's new.
Okay.
All right. Jason.
So, question for the applicant. It's a 5-year deadline on the permit. Did you request that, or is that a staff issue?
That comes from the ordinance now.
Okay.
So the ordinance with the new changes, they don't get to request how many years they want. It's so typically if this was a brand new property that had not rented before,
right,
their first cycle would be 2 years.
Yep.
Second cycle's 3, then their third and subsequent cycles are 5 years.
Okay.
And then it's written if they were previously licensed, they kind of get credit for how many years they already had. So that's why they jump up to the 5 years right off the bat. Without any, pending that there's no violations.
And then the second question for staff. The septic system says shall be installed prior to renting the home.
Yeah.
Will they provide us notification of that, or how
Yep.
does that work?
Yeah, so we, staff from our office inspect the septic systems when they're installed. So we'll know when that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, very good. Any other questions? All right, we will move to the public hearing on this one. Anyone here from the public on this item? All right, seeing nobody, hearing nobody, motion,
Mr. Chair, I move we close the public hearing.
okay, motion made by Sean, second by Rich to close public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, public hearing closed. Any further discussion on this item before we go to finding of facts?
Jason, just a quick question. Shelley, that deck and patio, was there a permit for that when that was put in?
I will have to look that up. The patio doesn't require a permit. But I have to look up if there is a permit for the deck.
Deck was on the house when we bought it. 11 years ago.
All right. Well, we will go to the finding of fact. Number one, is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, the proposal is consistent with zoning ordinance 439, sections 4.18, 6.62, and 9.9.6A.
Thank you, Rich. All right, number two, does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? List of applicable sections.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman, I believe it does with the business goals of acknowledging tourism's economic value and the prospective contribution of the industry to both diversity in the county economic base and the potential for growth.
Very good. Thank you, Jason. Number three, is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not? I would say it's consistent. It's previously had an IUP for the last 10 years, so it'll be consistent with the last decade of use. Number four, how has the applicant demonstrated that the standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
Mr. Chair, past history.
Yeah, very good. Past history, and then there's the septic, which will be double checked by the county. So yeah, very good. Five, other issues pertinent to this matter.
Mr. Chair, as you stated before, just a recognition, this is a renewal of 10 years of successful implementation of this.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Jason.
And one other item that was in the packet was the letter from the fire department.
Yeah, thank you for commenting on that. Yes, they did acknowledge service to that location.
Yep.
All right, with that, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application along with the recommended
conditions. Very good. Thank you, Rich.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
All right, so motion made by Rich, second by Sean to recommend approval with the 8 recommended conditions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, so motion to recommend approval will go to the county commissioners meeting in 10 days. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to agenda item number 4. That's to consider an interim use permit application submitted by Knife River of Sauk Rapids, Minnesota on behalf of Joel Middendorf Revocable Trust in Sauk Center, Minnesota, according to section 4.18, 6.17, and 9.2.6b of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439 to operate a temporary asphalt plant in the Ag 80 zoning district. The proposal is located in part of the southwest quarter, northeast quarter line east of Overton Road in section 28 of Grove Township. All right, quick roll call of members who visited the site. Jason?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
I also was. Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
And Joe?
Yes.
All right, very good. Is this Nick or Heidi again? Yeah, all right. Heidi, fire away.
All right, so this is for a temporary asphalt mixing plant. They're requesting this until December 31st of 2025. This property has had multiple asphalt plants in the past that we've approved, 2016, 2018, 2019, and we haven't had any complaints on those in the past. This is within an existing pre-ordinance mining operation. Road access is a township road, Overton Road. Property is 26.56 acres. All setbacks will be met. There's plenty of space on the property for parking and for the equipment to meet those setbacks. They're requesting hours of operation to be 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday with 5:30 a.m. generator startup, and then Sundays and holidays would be excluded. And then a $5,000 financial guarantee to ensure that the equipment and wrap is removed upon expiration. Properties within the agricultural area of the comprehensive plan. Recommended conditions, the Planning Commission identify the hours of operation, set a date for the interim use permit to expire. They're requesting December 31st, 2025. Truck hauling signs are required during times of hauling. Recycled asphalt pavement or excess material shall be removed upon completion of the operation. And the applicant shall submit and maintain a financial guarantee in the amount of $5,000 to ensure the equipment and wrap are removed. And that's all that I have.
All right, very good. As the applicant or representing the applicant, you want to see your name and address for the record?
Yep, Jay Emmerich. Our address at the office is 4787 Shadowwood Drive, Sauk Rapids, Minnesota, 56379.
Very good, thanks, Jay. Anything you want to add to the staff report?
Nope, I think we're good.
All right, cool. We'll move to questions. Quick question that I had. I noticed that I believe you have 9:30 listed as operating hours within the application, and then I saw 10 o'clock on this. I mean, it's not a major difference to me one way or another, but I just didn't know if there's a reason that in the recommended conditions is a little different than within the plan.
Mr. Chair, I do notice that the application says 10 p.m. and the narrative supplemental thing says 9 p.m.
Oh, is the supplemental, okay.
So,
Okay, so 10 o'clock is fine then. Just looking for consistency there. That's all I had. Any other questions for the applicant or staff on this one?
Is Danny Ranweiler retired yet?
He did just this year.
He did, huh?
Yep.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah. Mr. Emmerich, we, consider gravel and sand, an asset in the community, and we want to use that resource, and it looks like you've been using it out of that pit for quite a while, and that's a good thing. Any particular project that this one's gearing up for?
The majority of what we're doing is Stearns County work, the resurfacing, the new Munich project that just was let, also CASA 23 by Richmond. Those are all 2-year projects, so it's the majority of what we're doing is for Stearns County.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay, thank you.
Very good. All right. Any other questions? I will go to the public hearing on this one. Is anyone here from the public? All right, come on up. You can just state your name and address, and we try to keep that public testimony to 2 minutes, just to keep things moving.
Bruce Funk, supervisor for Grove Township, 33246 Overdale Road, Melrose.
Very good.
I'm wondering about the Hall Road, and they have in their paperwork they're going to water the roads down. A couple of the houses that they live on the road there are concerned about whether that'll be enough or if they would dust control. So which direction are they going for Hall Road? They talked about Richmond and New Munich, and I also heard about Padua and that type of stuff too. I heard something about that. So
okay.
Which way are they going? Are they going to water it heavy enough to stay ahead of the dust, or would dust control be easier? Last year I worked with them, Knife River, with doing dust control on our township road when they did the New Munich County Road 12, and we worked together real good. I was happy with them. Residents were happy, so now I'm just curious, what are they doing for this project?
Okay, very good.
So,
thank you. As applicant, would you want to address those questions?
Yeah, what we would try to do is we would water first. That would be our first means of keeping dust control down. But if that is something that isn't doing the job, we certainly would look at chloride, for the homeowners in there. And even with the chloride, we would still do some watering just to help with that.
Okay.
But if there is a concern and the township wants to address it with us, we would certainly look into that.
Very good. So basically, chain of communication would be if residents have issues, they can contact the township. Township can get in contact with you guys, and you will address your dust control accordingly. All right, very good. Any other?
Mr. Emmerich, yeah, we appreciate that, especially with the neighbors that are very close, that are going to see the most traffic. If there's any immediate ones, if that chloride treatment would be available for them, we did appreciate it, I think.
Sounds good.
All right, very good. Anyone else here from the public on this one? All right. With that, then.
Mr. Chair, I move we close the public hearing.
All right. Thank you, Sean.
I'll second that.
Motion by Sean, second by Rich to close public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Public hearing is closed. Any further discussion on this item? All right. Hearing none, we'll move to the findings of fact. Number one, is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, it is consistent with Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439, Sections 4.18, 6.17.1, and 9.2.6b.
All right, very good. Two, does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? List applicable sections.
Mr. Chair, under nature goals, number 4, it protects the county's aggregate resources and provides for reasonable economic use of the aggregate.
All right, very good. Thanks, Rich. Number 3, is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, it's compatible because we're not really changing anything.
Yeah, it's been used many times in the past, as stated. Thank you, Sean. Number 4, how has the applicant demonstrated that the standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
Mr. Chair, past practices.
Yeah. Thank you, Rich. And then number 5, any other issues pertinent to this matter?
Mr. Chair, just the discussion that we had with the township commissioner and the applicant about the dust control, and they're willing to be flexible to moderate that issue when it happens.
No, very good. And to add to that, Jason, I think it's also pertinent that the township stated that communication has worked well in the past. And so we're just looking for that as part of this conditional use permit as well. So very good. With that, a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion we approve.
All right.
I'll second it.
With the conditions.
All right. So motion by Rich, second by Mike to recommend approval with the 5 conditions. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right. So motion to recommend approval will go to the county commissioners.
Okay.
Thank you, Jay.
Shelley, I don't want to pull this one, and I am concerned about the dust control. How are we going to state that? Can we have the language right now?
Well, it wasn't added as a
Joe,
condition.
yeah, we didn't
at
add
this
it as
point,
a condition. We stated it as being pertinent to the matter that
Okay.
they've worked well together in the past, and that's part of that condition, but we didn't make it a formal condition.
Do we want to make it a condition?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Persky, we'll make sure it's written in those other pertinent issues.
All right.
And so that does become a part of the full record of the approval.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're not.
So that it's not going to be lost
I just
in
wrote down,
the approval.
township requested appropriate dust control, and, they should be willing to provide that. But just so that the
Yeah, and
language
it's-
isn't vague enough for them to skirt it, but we don't want to need it.
We're stating it in the record for that purpose, and that's part of why you're making the recommendation for approval as PC, and then that will follow as it goes to county board.
All right.
We'll make sure it's in there.
Okay.
Thank you, Shelley. All right, that brings us to agenda item number 5. Thank you, by the way. that one. So agenda item number 5, that's to consider a conditional use permit request submitted by Hope Presbyterian Church of Richfield, Minnesota for an after-the-fact major shoreland alteration according to section 10.2.14I of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439. The request includes topographic alteration and construction of a retaining wall on a steep slope in the shore impact zone. The property under consideration is part of Government Lot 7, lying east of Rice Lake, south of Don Ridge Circle, and west of Triple T Road in Section 18 of Eden Lake Township. The property address is 17087 Triple T Road, Eden Valley, Minnesota. Quick roll call of members who visited the site. Jason?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
I also was able to. Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tara?
Not able to.
And Joe?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Now with that, Nick, we'll go to staff report.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission, as mentioned, this is an after-the-fact request for a retaining wall. It's a major shoreline application because it is a steep slope within the shore impact zone, which is 50 feet, within 50 feet of the ordinary high water level. These are sandy loam soils out here with moderate erodibility due to the slope. There is a 100-year floodplain along the shoreline, but it's not within the project area. There's excellent vegetation cover along most of the shoreline and upland areas. Part of that is due to the fact that that is a soil and water conservation district. There was a project there that protected that shoreline, so that most of it is very well vegetated. The project area is the main water access for the property. As I alluded to, that soil and water conservation district restriction area is present on all of the shoreline except for about that 110 feet used for access to the water. A portion of this was impacted by the project, and one of the conditions and notes from SWCD as well would be, a requirement would be for that area to be restored back to what it was. There are plant lists involved as well. The septic systems were certified just last week. WATAB was out there, and all 4 systems were compliant. A little bit of background. Last year in 2022, a minor shoreline permit was issued for some dirt work and then construction of the pervious paver strips. Those were engineered to be permeable surfaces on the slope. This year in January, a reinspection of the site found that there was work beyond the scope of what was on that minor shoreline permit. The retaining wall was added on the downslope side of those pervious paver strips. And then the contractor with Superior Surroundings, they were unlicensed. They have since paid the fee and have become licensed with the county. Then March and April, application was submitted, and then we did a site visit joint with Soil and Water Conservation District out there to verify the boundaries of that restriction area, and did find that part of that was impacted kind of on the upslope side of the slope. The retaining wall is about 55 feet long and 3 feet high, downslope of those pervious paver strips, and then there was some dirt work associated with that on the slope as well. For the conditions, there are 3 recommended conditions, one of them being the restoration of that area, the restriction area that was impacted using the plants approved by Soil and Water Conservation District. The second would be vegetative screening of the retaining wall using vines and woody vegetation as specified and approved by the Soil and Water Conservation District and Environmental Services. And then the third condition being the fact that sediment and erosion control would need to be maintained until vegetative cover exceeds 80% establishment. There was no other correspondence on this item, and that is all I have.
All right, very good, Nick. Applicants, if you can state your name and address for the record.
Keith Koenig. My address is 7132 Portland, Richfield, Minnesota 55423. I represent Hope Church.
Okay, thank you.
Loggy, Superior Surroundings. You want a home address or office?
Actually, I think either one's fine. Office is probably appropriate in this case.
Okay, 25730 7th Street West, Zimmerman, Minnesota, 55398.
All right, thank you. Anything you would like to add to the staff report?
Nothing other than since Nick and I had talked, we went out there the end of last week, put up all new silt fence on the downhill side and more erosion blanket where some of that had torn away, and then cleaned up the additional that was damaged by high water and ice.
All right. All right, very good. Questions from commission members for the applicants or staff?
Mr. Chair, question for Nick. What happens if we remove the wall?
Mr. Chair, Member Wienerman, so with the way it was constructed, the paver strips are kind of supported on the upslope side of that wall. So I guess, one option would be if the wall was removed, you would have to regrade, and that would probably impact the lower tier of paver strips, or maybe even the second tier, to get a stable enough grade. So just by way of, how it was constructed, they put the wall in there because the grade, wasn't working for keeping a stable grade without the wall. So,
all right, thank you.
Yeah.
May I add to that?
Yep.
All right, so the entire reason the wall went in is because the original engineered plan would not work. And I was not the only contractor that identified that. It was either put the wall in or scrap the entire project.
Yeah.
So.
Well, okay, just so everyone knows that these after the facts are tough, right? They always put everyone in a tough spot. So just from a context perspective, at that point, because I look at the drawings, that part makes sense. Was it just lack of knowledge, or why didn't we reach out to the county to double check if there were different requirements or changes of plans that could impact the permit?
I guess from my standpoint, I didn't. It was within. It's under the state statutes for a retaining wall, and it was within the original disturbance and impact zone. At that point, we were about 5 days away from freeze up, and the entire project was stripped clean of vegetation. At that point, what do you do? Do you wait for county approval? I mean, yes, probably that should have been the right way, but it's either push forward with the project and go through this process, or risk a big mess in freezing conditions.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
thank you.
Well, excuse me, Mr. Chair, my comment on that is you applied for a minor shoreline alteration, and you said you had about 5 days?
Yep.
So you already had contact information for the county? You could have taken your phone and called, and I'm sure somebody from environmental would have been out there.
Joe.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Nick, and then is the issue here then we switched from a minor to a major? Is the wall the way it was constructed and positioned, is it still acceptable as far as meeting conditions that would be under a major, or is there something unacceptable about the wall?
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, the paver strips were done under the minor permit, and that was, constructed fine. The only thing we're really considering at this point is just the retaining wall, just the retaining wall itself, and that's what pushed it to the major permit. Because it's on a steep slope within the impact zone, any retaining wall in that area would be subject to a major permit. So that's why it's here.
Correct. But as far as the wall itself, would it fit into the major? Are there any, as far as height, length, or the way it's constructed, setbacks? Is there any things that we would not have allowed in the major, that the construction that took place?
Well, that would be up to the commission because whether it was after the fact or before the fact, it still would have been a consideration in front of you. There is no maximum wall height, length, or width that people can apply for. They could apply for, any applicant could apply for as big of a wall as they want, but it would come before you to be approved, if that makes sense. So the ordinance does not specify maximum lengths, widths, or heights for retaining walls.
I thought we did have a standard as far as height on the walls, did we
It's
not?
just the difference between a minor, what would be allowed under a minor permit, and the major. So once it exceeds 4 feet, that's when it comes to
That's
us
what
as a major.
Right, okay. And then also the restoration area, can we see the overview, where that would be?
Yeah, so, yep, right where that cursor is there.
Okay.
I believe there is a picture later on.
Can you clarify what the restoration area all consists of? What are we looking at here?
Sure. Yep. So that area is essentially, it can't be impacted by disturbance, and it can't be mowed, it can't be, vegetation can't be removed and cut out of there. And that is part of an agreement that the Soil and Water Conservation District makes with the property owner through a restriction that runs with the property. And essentially that area just can't be impacted. A lot of times in those restrictions, public money has gone to paying for native vegetation, restoration of the site, stabilization, oftentimes with erosion problems. So that's meant to stay there in perpetuity.
So for clarification, there was already a restoration project completed through cost-shared funds, and then that was impacted through the construction, or I'm just confused? I don't
No,
understand.
so this restriction has been in place for quite a few years. This has been in place for a while. That area, the vegetation was removed within that area, so now that needs to be restored back to being native vegetation in that area. It's part of the buffer.
Okay.
Question? Is that in front of the wall? Is that what you're talking?
No. Okay, that's all right. So on that southern band that extends all the way up to the 110-foot wide area for access, it's on the top of the slope in that.
So basically, they've just exceeded the open space area, and so their open space is wider than what is allowed.
Right.
And so that area that's impacted now has to be restored with vegetation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
That's staked. They have stakes out there now.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead,
Nick,
Joe.
so what we're looking at is the area that's not in the yellow, is that the area that we're talking about?
So that area is the access area that's not part of the restriction. So that area is where the pervious paver strips are and where the retaining wall is. There was an area of grading that impacted that portion, that corner, that sliver of that restriction area. That's the area that would need to be restored.
Do you know how big is that spot?
Yeah, can I get the mouse? I think.
I was gonna say, we went right off the stakes, but.
Right there.
Yeah, where we took down that tree.
That's the area there.
Nick, a question for you. I was looking at some of the comments by Sauk River Watershed District, yourself. So at this point, okay, the rock wall's in, we have that issue. Looking at that site, I have almost more concern about pulling rocks out of there at this point and the amount of erosion and things that are going to happen than leaving it in place. Is that a fair assessment in your professional judgment, seeing these things? It's kind of what I saw in the comments in the letters, but I just wanted to verify.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would say if the wall would be removed, or even some of the wall being removed, that would lead to a steeper slope behind the wall. So then if the wall were to be removed, I think additional alteration would need to happen to stabilize the upslope area. So if the wall was partially approved, or if it had to be shortened or eliminated, that would essentially necessitate alteration upslope of that and probably removal of part of the pervious paver strips.
Yeah. When I look at the conditions that are recommended, so we were talking about the restoration of the area that was disturbed. There's the vegetative screening of the retaining wall itself, and then the sediment and erosion control needs to be maintained. That makes sense. The one thing I was going to ask, so there's still that area below the retaining wall, which is still a relatively steep slope. Now, I saw different comments made in recommendations, but that would seem like a logical area in which to obviously establish native vegetation in as well, just to eliminate future erosion. Is that something that we could make or should make a part of this condition to help address the erosion concerns going forward?
Mr. Chair, yeah, Greg and I on site talked about that very area. There are a lot of areas around Rice Lake that look very similar to that, and they look like that, kind of devoid of vegetation because of the amount of bounce that the lake receives.
Yep.
And it's very difficult to establish vegetation in those areas. Number one, due to the soil type, it's very sandy. And then number two, you get a lot of bounce with the water in the spring, and it's tough to get vegetation established that can handle that kind of bounce. So part of that's just due to the lake and the nature of what it sees and what's there. So I don't know that that's going to change drastically, even if there were efforts to try to restore that.
Yeah.
In a way, it's very difficult in situations like that.
Yeah, fair.
Can I add to that?
Yep.
We did do some restoration with grant money years ago. Same thing. We lost a lot of plants in the front.
Yeah. Yep. And I spent a lot of time on Rice, so I get that part of it. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, a question for Nick or the applicant. What did the site look like before the pavers went in? So what was the original pre-minor permit condition?
I don't know if we have. I did attach the minor shoreline permit that was issued. I don't know if we have before pictures attached there.
I can contest to the site before that. It was an eyesore. There was a boathouse there, and I know, Mike, you were on the county when I came to on the board to remodel that building. It was an eyesore. This is beautiful compared to that. So I add that. Plus, we have like 640 feet of lakefront, and this is the only area that, otherwise it's all vegetation.
Thanks. Tara, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. I have a question in relation to the letter provided by Stearns SWCD. And point number 2 that they make, they are talking about stormwater drainage. I don't think that was a condition that was actually suggested on the permit, though.
It was not.
Actually, I was looking at that as well, that you wanted to request some kind of stormwater management.
They're requesting some kind of stormwater management, but the fact that it's pervious pavers in the first place is stormwater management, and so I don't really understand the questions behind there. I was asked staff if you have any other additional comments on that. Otherwise, I don't understand that question.
Mr. Chair, Member Ostendorf. So just to rewind a little bit, as part of the project when this restriction went in place with the grant money that was mentioned on that slope, there was some drainage put in that actually was impacted as part of the project. It was kind of incidental, but there's a lot of water that moves through that slope. And, that is part of a concern there. Part of that can't really be mitigated further than doing a practice like the pervious pavers that were utilized to control at least runoff from that. And that was part of the reason why it was designed like that as well. Doing a large flat area would have been significantly more impact to the slope as well as runoff concerns. So for that area, I think the runoff will be minimal. It would be anything else that would be directed that way from upslope would be more of a concern. So here again, you still have to you'd still have to have space to, manage that water, and you're right by the lake already, so it's very difficult in terms of constraints.
Yeah, how do you know I'm going to ask something?
All right. Any other questions?
One more, Mr. Chair. Could we go back to this picture? The yellow area there is colored in, but we don't have a picture of it without the improvement because of the color colored in there. And one thing you mentioned is actually the amount of area that's disturbed compared to the amount of area that you actually have along the shoreline. You said there's 600 feet. So there's probably about, let's say, 400 feet or somewhere close to that that's undisturbed.
Yes.
And is there any plan for that?
No, we can't do anything with it.
Okay.
Yep.
It's a pretty big chunk of shoreline
Correct.
that's wooded out on rice. I mean, it has been for many years.
And of course, we'd like it to stay that way if, this is the situation that's here. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a bit of a mitigating consideration. So.
Yeah, that's very clear to the church. I've worked with Greg Berg for years, and we know that. Can't touch it.
Any other questions before we go to public hearing, which we don't have any testimony. We could probably just move through that right now. I don't see anyone here. Motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor of closing public hearing? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Public hearing closed. Through that portion, any other discussion on this before we go to the findings of fact?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I got one more.
Yes, sir.
Shelley, you mentioned that the contractor was unlicensed and now is licensed. Or Nick, you mentioned that?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any penalty as far as charging a fee for a license of after the fact, or do they pay the regular fee for a license?
Yes, Commissioner Persky, that there was a $1,000 fee associated with that, in addition to the $300 to become a licensed contractor, and that has all been taken care of.
Yeah, I thought we had something like that. Okay, we're good.
All right, anything else? All right, then we will go through the findings of fact for an after-the-fact application of a major shoreline alteration permit. It may be granted only upon finding that the alteration wholly meets Stearns County shoreland alteration standards, or the applicant undertakes such additional steps as to wholly mitigate for damage and risk posed by the unpermitted alteration to shoreland aesthetics and historic values, surrounding property values, erosion and sediment control, fish and wildlife habitat, or creating direct and indirect impacts on water quality. So number one, can the applicant sufficiently document that the alteration was done to protect water quality, improve aesthetics, control erosion, or enhance habitat? Please describe the reasons the applicant made the alteration and include documentation if available.
Mr. Chair, this is a hard one. I would say, based upon the failure or the potential failure of the slope following the installation of the pervious pavers, without the retaining wall, there's an increased opportunity of continued sliding over the site, which would increase erosion to the water body. So there's a cascading effect here where it was something that may have been needed after the fact that people were unaware of.
As well stated, actually, Jason. And you know what? I just didn't pay that close attention to that particular property beforehand, but I know the comment was made that aesthetically this area is better than what it was. There's previously boathouses, some things like that, so that would be also an aesthetic improvement from what was there prior to the minor shoreland starting. But it wouldn't have anything to do with habitat in this case, but the aesthetics and erosion control. Any other comments on this one?
Mr. Chair, I would have to say that it's referring to documentation, and we don't really have documentation, but the work does kind of speak for itself when you look at the pavers and stuff like that. We're trying to do the right thing.
Mr. Chair, I think they have submitted a letter, or there's been a letter submitted from Schultz Engineering, who looks like they were the original design engineer on the project. That seems to document what happened, but does give a favorable outlook that is a fairly natural look from the lake.
Yep. So they're kind of supporting Tara, Jason's point on the erosion control, and also referring to the aesthetic portion in their report. Is that what you're
I think they're only referring to the aesthetic portion of it.
Okay. Okay. I think the plan itself, to a degree, supports the erosion control, but does anyone feel differently? We'll move to number 2. So why did the applicant fail to obtain an alteration permit or comply with requirements before commencing work?
Mr. Chair, the applicant's representative stated that they were facing a time crunch basically at the end of the season for construction.
Yep, time constraint. There was a minor shoreline permit that was pulled on this, and this modification changed it into what would be a major as well. Any other thoughts there? Number 3, did the applicant obtain all other required permits and comply with other requirements? Please identify other required permits and whether the applicant obtained the permits.
Mr. Chair, it wasn't the applicant. It was the contractor who was an unlicensed, Nick, what's the language? Unlicensed shoreline
contractor.
Shoreline contractor who did not have a appropriate permit but has corrected the after the fact.
And just to that, was the initial minor pulled by, who was the minor permit pulled by?
So that was issued to the property owner with the condition that the contractor needed to be a licensed shoreline contractor.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Number 4 is the alteration in a sensitive area, shore or bluff impact zone, wetland buffer, county biological survey site, or other documented high-value habitat. Identify and describe all sensitive areas. It is in a bluff area. The alteration was not, as a percentage, was not in the rest of the sensitive area, which is being maintained. This is certainly a sensitive area because of the bluff.
And Mr. Chair, it might be here, it might be under 3, but also the Stearns SWCD deed restriction.
Yes. Yeah.
Either sensitive area or another permit.
Yeah.
Not sure it fits correctly.
Well, and there was, I guess, to that point, so the deeded area was impacted, and part of the conditions, if approved, would be to restore that sensitive area. Number 5, is the alteration visible from the lake or public water? Describe the degree to which the alteration is visible. It is definitely visible from the water when you're perpendicular out from it.
And it is at this point, but with the conditions and the suggested plantings and stuff, they're going to try to make it a little harder to see.
Yeah. Very good. Number 6, does the alteration affect the character of the neighborhood, or will it result in a substantial detriment to neighboring properties? Describe all substantial changes and detriments.
Mr. Chair, I don't see much change.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think it's a detriment aesthetically. The only detriment would have been around the idea of erosion.
Didn't do something.
Well, and yeah, to that point, there were already a few issues. Did the alteration reduce or eliminate an existing buffer between the ordinary high water level mark of the water and then impervious surfaces, or create a more direct conduit for stormwater to flow into public waters?
Mr. Chair, I don't think that the after-the-fact permit portion caused any more of that than the permitted portion of the project.
I would agree. Tara, thank you. 8, did the alteration change or damage any of the following categories? Describe the change or damage for each category. Aesthetics of the shore as viewed from the public water, character of the neighborhood or shoreline, vegetative buffer, erosion or sediment control device or system, stormwater management device or system, fish or wildlife habitat, or water quality.
Nick or Shelley, can we scroll down?
Just scroll down a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot there. There we go. It changed some of these things. I wouldn't say that it damaged them, if that's fair. I mean, it was a change to the property. Some of it was going to happen under a minor anyway. So I thought of one. Any other thoughts on that?
I think it may have changed the vegetative buffer, but it sounds like that is potentially a condition that can be added on.
All right, very good. Any other thoughts on that?
I don't know, from way in the past, it's aesthetics and everything is a lot better now than what it was way in the past when
Yeah.
I looked at it years ago.
Yeah, with the old boathouse and stuff, Mike. So from years ago, it's been an improvement, which is
Greatly.
Yep. Thank you. All right, anything else before I go to number 9? 9, could the applicant mitigate the damage or change without removing the alteration and restoring the sites? Please explain how mitigation would occur and the results of the mitigation. We kind of discussed that earlier, and the risk of removing the wall ends up creating more of a problem than leaving it in this case, and I think that kind of addresses number 9. Any other thoughts there?
I agree.
Mr. Chair, but could the applicant mitigate the damage or change without removing the alteration and restoring the site? But they are restoring some of it.
They're restoring a portion of it with the conditions. Good point. So some of the area is being restored. That is a fair statement. All right. 10, would the minimum benefits to the county appear to be far outweighed by the detriment the applicant would suffer if forced to restore the alteration? Why or why not? Describe the minimum benefits and details of the detriment to the applicant.
Mr. Chair, I think based on the previous conversation, if we pull that wall and the slope slips, that's a significant detriment to the county.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, any other thoughts on that item? All right, being we've gone through all 10, a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair, I recommend recommend the county board approve the after-the-fact conditional use permit for the major shoreline alteration with the 3 conditions as found in the staff report.
All right, thank you, Jason. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chair, I will second that.
All right, motion by Jason to recommend approval with the 3 proposed conditions, second by Sean. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
All right, so we have the 1 nay from Rich. So with that, the motion to recommend approval will go to the county commissioners in their meeting in 10 days on this item. So, all right, good luck with the restoration of the property.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, that will take us to agenda item number 6, which is approve the minutes from the last April
Jason,
meeting.
Could we, Mr. Chair, Nick, could we debrief this a little bit as far as what we saw and what we would potentially see in the future? I wish we could have had some pictures of before the wall and what it looked like before the wall. Because first of all, if this was a piece of, Nick, if this was a piece of undisturbed, there was no, somebody was coming in with a brand new home that they wanted to place there, they would be on the restriction of a beach of only 30 feet. Would that be correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky. So there are differences in commercial use properties as well as like residential properties. There are some different standards.
Yeah. So if it was a camp, what would they have been allowed if they were a new camp? They would have come in.
Yep. So if they were to come forward with a proposal with a similar sized wall like this in that location, it would still be a conditional use permit that would come.
Without the wall, just if it was.
So if it was pristine, yeah. So then they'd be limited to our vegetation removal standards, which would give them a portion of removal within a certain amount of area. It wouldn't be wide open, you know, on that scale like we see here.
Like a percentage of trees?
Do we have a percentage? I mean, do we say 50%, 25%?
Yep. So for residential properties, it is 25% removal within a 25-foot corridor. That is larger for commercial properties. I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but it would be a little bit more than that, but it wouldn't be to this extent wide open. What we see a lot is, you know, removal that's happened from years ago and that's existing. You know, it far exceeds what we would allow now. But with this being existing, you know, it's been like that forever, and it's not subject to the same standards. So.
Agreed. And I mean, if that was existing beach, we're not going to make them shorten that beach. Okay. And my point, my question is just, what would we allow if it was new? So that if we've got somebody that comes in and after the fact, and they actually took undisturbed property, we would maybe be looking at a different scenario where we would want them to replace it. Okay.
Yeah, you may, but it would still come before you as a conditional use permit if there was any wall proposed on a steep slope within the shore impact zone, whether it was pristine condition or already wide open.
With the wall.
What
I'm saying is about providing them a beach.
So a beach.
This one doesn't have a beach, though, Joe.
Well, if you take away, I guess if you take away all, is the vegetation going to be restored down to the shoreline?
That's what we were talking about.
But they said it wasn't going to possibly be able to be restored.
It's a natural beach to a degree. That's all sandy stuff, and the lake water level fluctuation just keeps that area wild.
And he can't go dump sand in there and make it more of it.
Right.
Okay, but it's different on the as you're looking to the lake, the vegetation that exists to the left-hand side, that rest of that shoreline, that's not eroded away. Okay, you can see where the vegetation, just as you're looking this direction, you see where the vegetation comes down to the shoreline. Okay, I'm calling that a beach. Okay, because there's no vegetation there. Okay.
I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying now? Yeah. So we would not have not bringing sand down. We would not have allowed all that vegetation to have been taken off.
Correct. We wouldn't allow that. Yeah.
And then it is going to be problematic to put anything back in there.
Getting it to become established again is always more difficult than maintaining what's there. You know, if it's already existing. That's why we always highly discourage people to remove the vegetation. That's why we have vegetation standards as it is now, is because we've recognized that, and that is very difficult to get it back to what it was for so many years. So.
Yeah. And I will agree this is better probably than what was there, but I would have liked to have seen what was there.
Yeah. After the facts are hard. I just don't want to say that in the microphone. They're not fun. puts everyone in a bad spot.
Is there any way we can eliminate a lot of these after the facts if we have more communication with the landowner? The landowner pulled the minor, and at that time, could we inform them, at the county, inform them, if you're going to go beyond what you have listed here, you need to come back.
It's listed on every permit.
Yeah.
And then you ask them if they're going to have a contractor do the work.
It is. Yeah, it was supposed to.
Yeah.
It,
listed in the standard conditions as, and in this
You
case,
have
as
a real
addition.
hard time accepting the excuses that were given tonight and other previous ones. They're just not doing, they're totally ignoring intentionally. Oh, we'll just do it.
I think that, wasn't that contractor licensed as a contractor in another county and just not Stearns?
He's from Zimmerman.
Yeah, he hadn't done work in the county previously to that, so.
So, I mean, he knows.
Yeah, we're aware of it at least, yeah.
Mr. Chair, is there a way we could ask them to reference the contractor before they get the permit, or when they get the permit?
Yeah, so the challenge with that, especially the last few years, is with availability of contractors. You know, you could be booked months out and plans could change with either the contractor or the property owner. So that gets to be very challenging. That's why we do list and speak with, when we talk to the property owners, we tell them about the requirement, and it's listed on the permit. It's right on the application. They have to list the contractor, or if they're doing it themselves. And if they don't have a contractor picked out, we specifically list that they have to come from our list of licensed shoreline contractors in Stearns County.
When I seen the Boulder Wall, I had one name in particular, but it wasn't.
So Nick, so they had the impervious strips put in. Is this a design failure? Could this have been, did the engineer misunderstand the site they were working on?
Yeah, it's very possible. However, it could have been a construction issue as well, in terms of not following the plans accurately as well, given the fact that the SWCD restriction area was accounted for as part of the minor permit. That was all in play, and we knew where that was, and that was very much part of the conversation. And the engineer knew that, and they put that on there, but for whatever reason, both that area was impacted by the contractor that did the work, as well as the grade not working below those pervious paver strips, which brought the wall into play. So,
was this thing designed way ahead of when it was actually installed? Could the lake have bounced that much?
it was designed December December, and then early 2022 is when the permit was issued. December of 21 is when the engineer finished it, and then the permit was issued early 2022, and then install happened late last year. So.
I think somebody dropped the ball, because if you look at the elevation and the length of your slope and what the degree of slope that system is designed for, somebody dropped the ball on that big time.
It would have been very easy to not need the wall, by just a few changes in how it was installed with the pervious paver strips.
Back the slope further back.
every one of them's unique, and every one of them's similar. So you battle it out every time. All right, minutes for April meeting. Do you have a motion to recommend approval of the minutes?
Move to approve.
Thanks, Rich. Second.
Second.
Thanks, Jason. All those in favor of approving the April minutes, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Meeting adjourned. Oh, doggone it. Hang on.
We're done.
Pull it back. What's up? What? Other discussion.
Oh,
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yep.
Sorry, Deb. It's intentional that we have a committee. We're trying to put all the pieces together. Commissioner Persky and Commissioner Notch are our two county commissioners. We have a Board of Adjustment member that's going to be on because they've seen a lot of this. So we need kind of that wide. We've got a couple of options for township officials. Now we're looking for 2 planning commission members to serve on an accessory building conversation, which may go in more than one direction, second tier development, a whole bunch of other things that we would separate out. But kind of getting you as PC members, because you see accessory buildings too and how that affects everything. So looking for some members that would be willing. I do not know dates yet.
Yeah.
So while you don't know dates, would these be evening meetings?
More than likely, they would be evening meetings because we're asking for township people as well and other members. So probably evening meetings, hopefully early-ish rather than later, and we'll see what's available. So if there are people interested, let me know or think about it, see if there's a person that's interested now.
Would they be here in St. Cloud?
The intention, I think, would be to hold them here so we can put as much information together and hold it at the service center, as far as I know.
So unless anybody else has a burning desire, I'm here in St. Cloud, so it's not a problem for me to hop in.
Yeah. Anyone else passionate about this one?
I'm not passionate.
Okay.
Passionate, but a little interested because
if you want,
seen it on the.
yeah, no, if you want to jump into it, I would jump into it. My schedule is ridiculous. So Mike would be interested. Jason, anyone else?
You got enough of it.
I appreciate you guys stepping
So
forward.
I'll put those names forward, Mike Prull and Jason Wienerman, and then we will talk about schedules. Angie's going to put that together as we go forward, and there'll be lots of conversation. It's hopefully just a couple of meetings, go through the big picture, what we've seen historically, how we've seen accessory buildings, kind of some of the changes that are being considered. There may be a secondary conversation about second-tier development, but I think it's more of what's the expectation for accessory buildings in Lakeshore and non-Lakeshore, in ag areas versus residential areas. So some of the big picture questions that I think we should discuss.
Mr. Chair, since we have the 2 volunteers, I move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
You good?
Actually, one quick question.
Yes.
So for the island thing, do we
Angie's,
know where is that sitting somewhere?
Angie's going to be bringing that information back. I don't know enough about the islands to be helpful.
Sounds good.
All right. All right.
Bang away.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
7:37. Nice job getting through that.
Board members, while you're sitting there, I wanted to comment about, we had that